Hi everyone, I am Adolfo Neto, a professor at the Federal University of Technology, Paraná, and this is the Professor Adolfo Neto podcast. In this podcast, I interview professionals from the field of computing and related areas. Today, I'm joined by Laura Castro, a distinguished professor at Universidade da Coruña, UC, Spain. Laura is also the chair of Cátedra CICAS, a collaborative project aimed at advancing open science through software. Additionally, she actively contributes to the BEAM, Erlang and Elixir community, and is a member of the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation. Thank you for accepting my invitation, Laura. Do you have anything to add to that description?
No, that was brilliant. Thank you very much for having me, Adolfo.
Okay, so my first question is about Erlang, and I didn't mention that you were one of the organizers of the Code Bean A Coruña. Well, first, was it the first Code Bean A Coruña? That
Yes,
one in
it was
2022.
2022,
Okay.
exactly, yes.
And I know that you have a long history with Erlang. What sparked your interest in Erlang?
Well, I think that sometimes it's not something, but someone. So that was in my case. It was a professor at the time. We had during my CS studies, we had a number of subjects we could choose from, apart from the compulsory ones. And one of those was functional programming. And in the functional programming course, there was a small part in which we learned Erlang. And then the professor that showed us this unknown language at the time, this was the early 2000s, he was really enthusiastic about it. So that was probably the key for me to be really curious about it. And then once I knew the great things that you could do with much less effort than in other languages that I knew at the time, then I was sold for it.
Okay, that's curious because, yes, I believe we have approximately the same age, and I don't remember no one talking about Erlang when I was a student, a graduate student. In my memory, which may be flawed, but the first time I heard about Erlang was in 2011 when Bruce Tate wrote that book, that great book, 7 Languages in 7 Weeks. And there he has a chapter about Erlang. And then after a few months, I believe, I learned that there was a language, Elixir, that was created by a Brazilian who also, I didn't know that Brazilian, and because he was kind of famous in Brazil in the Ruby community, but I was not a part of the Ruby community. And by the way, we were studying at the same University of São Paulo at the same time, approximately, but in different departments. So my question is, when did you first encounter Elixir?
So that was probably at some point when the first Elixir announcements were made within the Erlang community. So, but I wanted just to go back slightly to what you just said, because we at the University of A Coruña, we are having a little bit, so to say, privilege. We have some privilege of working. We had a few professors that worked closely with people in Sweden. So they had research collaborations with people who were rather close to Ericsson. So that's why we were among the first to start using Erlang for research purposes. So yeah, being a part of the Erlang community, and we keep seeing this nowadays. You very early start hearing or reading about someone is trying to do this, or someone is trying to add types, or developing this and that tool. So I guess that it was, I don't know if it was on the mailing list or on the Slack, if that was already available, but it was through the community that I learned that Elixir was coming.
Yes, and I have to say that there is a podcast. It's, of course, inactive now, but it's called Mostly Erlang. it's a podcast from the past, but they still have a website. And at least the last time I checked, they still had a website. And José Valim was there maybe in 2012 or 2013. There is even a conversation including him and Joe Armstrong, one of the creators of Erlang, and Robert Verding. I believe there's also an episode where Bruce Tate is there. It's great. But tell us a bit about what you do at the University of A Coruña. What do you teach? What do you do research on?
So, well, lots of questions. So one at a time. As you said, I'm a professor by now. So when I finished my studies, I did the PhD, and after some time, I ended up being a professor at this same university. And I coordinate two courses. One is on software architecture, and that's for third or fourth year students, and the other one is on software testing. And then that's also for fourth-year students mostly. And in both of them, I use one way or another the Beam, mostly in the software architecture course. And that's so at the beginning. So this was a subject that was created around 12 years ago. So it's not that old. It was not there when I was a student, for instance. But software architecture is something that nowadays has to be there in the studies of computer engineering, computer science. So when we designed this subject, we wanted the students to be able to experiment firsthand things like, I don't know, peer-to-peer or client-server, microservices, leader worker, different ways of architecturing a large system. But at the same time, you're at the university and most of your projects, they last two months, 3 months at best, because at the beginning you have to be acquainted with the technology that you're going to use in that subject. So we were looking for tools that will allow us to do that with the fewest efforts going to this is not compiling, or this is memory leaking, or this is the debugging, this is very complex. And so we wanted to focus on the design of the systems and thinking in processes and asynchronicity, those kind of concepts. And of course, you're nodding, and I'm sure you're thinking, of course, the Beam is perfect for all these things that you're mentioning. And that was the conclusion that we came to at that point. And I would say that experience has shown that it was the right choice. So at the beginning, the students are a little bit surprised that they're not going to use Java or Python or anything that they already know. And sometimes they're not so happy. They have to learn something that they don't know, so they are not sure if it's useful or where is it used. But then most of them, they are happy about the experience, and mostly happy because they do create tens and dozens of processes, and they have to coordinate them, and they have to think about structures that go beyond the design and implementation that they have been practicing so far. So that's one thing. And in the software testing course, what I do is I try to go beyond the basic unit testing and system testing and end-to-end testing. So for that, I introduce the students to property-based testing. And even though there are already a few tools to do property-based testing, say in Java, hypothesis in Python is rather powerful, but still the expressivity that I found in the property-based testing tools that we have at the Beam, it's hard to match. So that's why I take advantage that most of them already have the Beam knowledge fresh in their minds from the software architecture course, and so we keep within the Beam for the software testing course as well.
Okay, that's great. And you could choose, right? Because, for instance, I have an introduction to functional programming course here at the UTFPR, and I chose. I'm not. My main language is not going to be Haskell or other language. It's going to be Elixir because I want. You are free enough to choose the Beam, right?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Okay,
So that was yeah, I didn't have to fight anyone or convince anyone else. I was in charge of designing the subject, so I could do it freely.
And I want to complement this question because I know that you have written some papers, at least one on property-based testing. There is a talk in my YouTube channel, a great talk by you on property-based testing. I'll put the link to the video here in the description. And I also know that you wrote, for me, it's a different kind of paper because you wrote that paper with one person from the community, Brujo Benavides. Mm-hmm. How was the process of writing that paper?
Well, that was a very interesting experience, and it came from Brujo himself. He wanted to go through the experience of writing a research paper, right? Because he's been very active in the community, and he had been writing posts in Medium for a long time. But he also knew that apart from the Erlang factories that later on became the code beams that we all know nowadays, there was this Erlang workshop co-located with ICFP, which is the main functional programming conference in the world. So he was curious about that. And because in the Vue community, we are lucky enough that the academics are really intertwined with the practitioners. We meet each other at all these different events. So he also wanted to know what's about this, what's all this with the academia? How do you talk to each other? How is it different? I want to be there. I want to also do that path at least once. So he had developed a small tool at the time, and he wanted to know, so is this something that from the academic point of view would be interesting, and how would you describe it, and how precise you have to be? And so I walk him through all the experience of identifying if what you have done is novel at some point, or it's just a re-implementation of a concept. And in his case, he had truly incorporated in that tool things that there were no other tools that had, even from the theoretic point of view. So there was a scientific merit in his work. And then, of course, you have to explain things in a formal way, in a way that, so you take yourself a little bit further away from the implementation details so that anyone else from any other community can get those learnings and extrapolate into other technologies. And then you show actually that you have done something that works, and you have to make some measurements to prove your claims. And that was the process. It was fun, and he was a really, really enthusiastic companion in that path. So it was a great experience. I really recommend it. So academics and developers that are out there, I think it's fun to do it. So go ahead.
What was it the first time you had this kind of interaction with someone from the community and who was not doing a master's or a PhD?
Yes, indeed, exactly.
Okay, now the next question is about the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation. And you talked a little bit about how you get involved first with the Erlang community, but when did you get involved with the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation?
Well, I don't remember exactly when, but I guess it was through either Simon Thomson or Francesco Cesarini, which are really big names in the community as well, and that were already involved. And they were probably looking for more people to have the widest points of view, the wider range of points of view, and well, more hands to help also. So that's, and of course I ended up in the education working group, which is the one that fits the most, I guess.
Okay, and right now I'm one of the co-chairs with Lee Barney, and we have to shake things so that more people from the community get involved with this education work group. I know it's a topic that could justify hours of discussion, but what are your thoughts on the lack of gender diversity in the field of computing?
Well, as you said, we could talk for hours, right? But I mean, if we have to probably consider something, is that it's not it's an endemic problem. I think that at some point, at least for people my age, so we grew up in the 80s, 90s in this west side of the world, so to say, and we thought that time will just bring equality. So people will be free and equal just because we had already the right laws for that. And that will mean that, of course, if everyone has the same opportunities and we are all equal, then people will just evenly spread out in all aspects of society and all the kinds of jobs and the like. But reality shows that that is not the case. So there are things beyond the laws that says that we are all equal and we are all capable of everything that really, from a very early age, create expectations for people. And the reality is that in 2024, the expectations that we create for young kids, girls and boys, lead them to different paths. So yeah, we don't have far enough women at all in technology, and that's a great problem because technology has become a really, really big part of society. And we also don't have men teaching kids, so we don't have men involved in caring fields, and that is also a problem because small kids don't have roles to look up to when caring for others. So probably if I would summarize what I think nowadays is that we cannot only think about technology as the tech field having a problem. I think that all society has a problem. And if we only focus on fixing tech, which is a really big issue, and of course I'm involved in that, and I cannot fix the whole society. I try to help in the tech field. But those efforts cannot be alone. We have to work in a lot of coordinated efforts, I think.
Yes, and you have a group, right, at the Universidad da Coruña, where
yes,
you welcome women that are part. First, what's the percentage of women that get in your courses, your computing courses at Universidad da Coruña?
So it's really, really low. It's been around 10-12% for a number of years now. It used to be not so bad. I mean, when I was a student, 20 plus years ago, it was around 30%. But then, probably for socioeconomic circumstances, it went down. And it's taken really, really, really a long time to get back. We've seen a little bit of improvement, probably because in the latest years, things like data science and in artificial intelligence that appeal to probably a not so nerdy vision of technology. And probably because of that, we are seeing a little bit increase. So I think this year it was around 16%, which is, I mean, compared to 10, it's like 50% plus, but still it's really, really low. And yeah.
But you mean that economic factors affect more women than men?
No, I think it affects society as well. I'm referring to the housing crisis that was in the US and affected Europe as well. So around that time, what sociologists perceived was that the families supporting the students that were entering the university were making like more conservative choices for their children, so they will support more like the boy of the family going to study law or economics and the girl going to study medicine or to become a teacher than like really fringe professions. And of course that meant that it affected the computer science studies as well. So that's when I say that socioeconomic circumstances affect choices, I refer to that, and that's something not that I have studied, but the people who study those things show once and again.
Okay, so one last question is about knowledge. We know that in in computer science, of course, nowadays in almost any area, we have to get up to date with what's happening in the world. Right now, there is a wave of artificial intelligence subjects, but this is not new for you or for me. How do you prefer? What do you do when you have to learn something? For instance, when you had to learn Elixir, or when you have to learn something else. What do you do, or what do you prefer to do? You prefer to read a book, to watch a video, to listen to podcasts? What else?
So it's really really interesting, your question, because I'm going to tell you like a little small story that for people that do not work in academia may be like a really explain how things in academia work. So about a year ago, I wrote a small paper about something that I did in my software architecture classes it was a role dynamic. So I wrote a paper about it and I sent it to a software architecture conference. Didn't really have anything to do with the BIM. But in that conference, I met someone from Chile, so from the other corner of the world. And we've been working together precisely in that question that you just asked. So what do people in software engineering like to do? Depending, I mean, is there something that we all do? Is there something that all software architectures prefer to do, like reading or hands-on? So we're still in the middle of that research, but to answer your question from my personal point of view, I'm really like a hands-on person. So yeah, I might read a little bit of like in Elixir school. So yeah, you get a flavor of the syntax of a new language, but then I would go to Ecosystem, for instance, and do a few exercises or come up with a pet project to implement and to deploy, because that's when you really have to think for yourself, how will you do that, and what choices do you make? And for me, that's the learning experience, but it may differ for others. And once we know a little bit more about how software engineers rather do it, if there's a common profile or set of profiles, I will let you know.
That's great. So I told you it was the last question, but I have to ask, because I have been to Cátedra Coruña. It was a great experience. You have a beautiful auditorium that when it opens the curtain, you can see the sea. And it was people, a group, I don't know if you were part of that group, were yes, planning Cátedra Coruña to 2024, but it didn't happen. Is yes, it in your plans or in the plans of this group to have a Cátedra Coruña maybe in 2025, 2026?
Yes, we still keep in touch, and we have the Discord channel where we plan all things. And the thing was that apparently 2024 is the year for conferences in A Coruña. So precisely in the same dates that we have booked, or we wanted to book for this, a lot of subfields of computer science are going to meet here in A Coruña. So it was going to be crazy. So all venues are locked, the hotels are booked, the flights are probably booked by now already. So yeah, that and a number of other reasons made us think that it was not wise to summon the BIM community here. But it is in our minds, and we will be back, I'm sure. So okay, keep posted.
Yes, a curious is I'm a part of the group that organizes the Brazilian Symposium on Software Quality. And last year we had this edition of the conference in Brasilia. And what happened? Had Hot Chili Peppers, a famous rock band, same week. They had a show there, yeah, same week. It was very difficult to find a hotel room, but everything went well. Only the professors and students, they had to find hotels very far from
farther away
the venue.
Yeah.
And this year the symposium will be in Salvador, Bahia, which is a beautiful city. I believe they have much more hotel rooms there.
And Red Hot Chili Peppers are not going to be there.
I don't know. I don't know right now, but even if they go, it's not going to be as, because Bahia is well known for its kind of music, which is a axé music. So rock is less of a thing there. Thank you very much for being here, Laura. Do you want to leave a final word to our listeners or watchers? How do you say watchers? Viewers.
Now, my last words are of gratitude to you for remembering me and for always inviting me to different initiatives. It was a pleasure when I gave the class that you mentioned earlier. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And yeah, to the viewers, just research about the BIM. You will be delighted at what you find out, and we will welcome you. We're a very welcoming community.
Thank you again, Laura, and thanks to our listeners and viewers for taking time to listen and watch this episode. We appreciate your attention. Bye-bye. If you are curious and ready to take your Elixir language skills to the next level, check out my affiliate link to the ELX Pro course in the episode description.